What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster, and we finally have some news to discuss this summer regarding our UConn Huskies that does not involve the idea of leaving the Big East Conference. I don't want to talk about that. I hope that we're not going to have to talk about that anytime soon. It seems like there may be some news that we may need to discuss at some point here in the near future, but until that day actually happens, I'm going to stick with what I know, and that is UConn basketball landing a pair of commitments here in the last 2 weeks. We have plenty to talk about with them. Isaiah Abraham, Ahmad Nowell, and it seems as if UConn is going to be in the mix for talents like Cooper Flagg and talents like AJ Dybantsa, who are both, ironically enough, coming from the New England area. I don't know when the last time the two best prospects in all of high school basketball were both from New England, but that is where we are here in the year of our Lord 2023. I'm also at the end of this, I'm going to drop in some audio from a conversation that I had with John Fanta about 2 weeks ago regarding the status of UConn's offseason and whether or not it was a success, and kind of how that all played out. It was about 20 minutes long. I think it's an interesting conversation. I think that you will enjoy what we have to say if you have not already heard it from what was posted on YouTube. So that will be at the end of the show. That'll be the end of what you hear here. All right. So before we get into the breakdowns of the commitments and breakdowns of the players that are joining the program, first, I just want to remind you to please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you're listening to it, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, whether it's on Spotify, whether it is on YouTube. All of that stuff really helps. We are beholden to the algorithm on all of these different apps. And every time you interact with a piece of content from the Field of 68 or from Top Dogs on any of those apps, it helps. I promise it helps. If you do that, I really do appreciate you. If not, maybe next time I'll be able to convince you to hit that like button. It's not all that hard. All right. So first and foremost, on July 14th, UConn landed a commitment from Isaiah Abraham. He is a 6'7" combo forward from a couple of different powerhouse programs. He plays for Paul VI in Virginia, and he played AAU ball for Team Takeover, who won the EUIBL and who was one of the best AAU programs in all of AAU basketball and all of grassroots basketball. He is a four-star player. He's what we would refer to as a high four-star player. He's ranked 26th on On3. He's ranked 72nd on 247 Sports, 24/7 Sports, whatever you want to call it. He's ranked 79th on ESPN. He's ranked 69th on Rivals, and he picked UConn over the likes of Marquette, Georgetown, Virginia, and Providence, which is always something that is enjoyable around these parts. Toughness and defensive versatility are the first things that stand out when you watch Isaiah Abraham play. He's one of these guys that is known for his ability to guard multiple positions. He's one of these guys that is known for his ability to guard up and guard down. He is what you would call a switchable defender. He is what you would call a versatile defender. He is what you might call a positionless basketball player. He is a guy that can fit in a lot of different roles and in a lot of different places on a basketball court, and everybody loves those guys these days. Adam Finkelstein loves to say he has a junkyard dog mentality when referring to Abraham. And if you've watched Team Takeover play, if you watch them in the finals of the Peach Jam, the finals of the EYBL on ESPNU, if you've seen anything, if you go to any of the high school basketball games in and around the DC area and watch Paul VI, like that's something that really jumps off the page when you watch him play. Like the dude just works, the dude plays hard, he's got a work ethic. He is a guy that I think would really fit in well to UConn basketball culture and what it's been over the course of the last 2 years. He's not really a natural 3 or a natural 4. He's one of these guys where, 15 years ago, we would have called him a tweener and we would have said, I don't really know if he has a position. And now in this day and age, those tweeners are the guys that everybody loves because he can do a little bit of both and he can guard both. Most importantly, like motor, toughness, defensive effort are skills, in my opinion. And those are the skills that he has that he thrives with. He was probably the 4th or 5th best player on Team Takeover, but they don't win without him. Like he's one of these connective pieces that makes everything else work around him, if that makes sense. And you need guys like that. He's not Andre Jackson. He doesn't have that kind of athletic ability. He doesn't have that kind of passing ability. He's probably a better shooter. I would hope he's a better shooter. But if you think about it in the sense that you had all of these other players in kind of specific roles, and then Andre out there to do all the dirty work and do all the other stuff, that's kind of like what you think of when you think of Isaiah Abraham. Like, he will make everything else work a little bit better because he can do all of the things that these other guys can't. I do think that when you look at what UConn's forward core could end up being in 2024-25 and in 2025-26, he fits really well next to guys like Alex Caravan, like Jalen Stewart, maybe even to Jaden Ross, because those guys are more they have a more traditional skill set, right? They're kind of out there because they can shoot. They're out there because they're threats offensively. They're out there for being floor spacers. And when you put one of those guys next to an Isaiah Abraham, you could play Jalen Stewart at 3 and Isaiah Abraham at the 4 and be fine. You could play Caravan at the 4 and Isaiah Abraham at the 3 and be fine and be better than fine. You'd have a really good forward core there. So I think that he is a good fit in terms of what he is as a basketball player. And he's very much a Dan Hurley, I'm doing air quotes, Dan Hurley guy, and that he should be able to contribute on the defensive end early. Effort will never be an issue. Work ethic will never be an issue. And I do believe that when you get into that player development program, you're going to see him take strides. I think he's going to be a really good player for UConn. Offensively, extend the range out a little bit, become a better shooter, be a little bit more of a more efficient downhill scorer, be somebody where you're strong enough if you are playing the 4 or if you're playing the 3 and you have a smaller defender on you, you could throw the ball into him in the post and he can overpower him. Maybe you get him on the elbow and he kind of rips through and gets to the rim and finishes through contact. Things like that are where he can kind of develop. And once you get into a college strength and conditioning program, you're probably going to be a lot better. But look, he's a great culture guy. He's a winning player. He's got upside talent. He is exactly what UConn likes to target. And I understand why Dan Hurley and his staff went after him as hard as they did and landed a commitment from him. Ahmad Nowell, 5 days later, made the same decision. He announced that he is committing to UConn as well in the class of 2024. He is another 4-star prospect. He's 58th on 3. He's 36th on 24/7. He's 30th on ESPN, and he ranks 38th on Rivals. He is a 6-foot bulldog of a lead guard, and he picked UConn over the likes of Tennessee, Auburn, and the Kentucky Wildcats. And I think the fact that he was recruited heavily by Tennessee and Auburn should kind of tell you what he is as a defensive presence, right? Like, he is an absolute bulldog at the point of attack. He's built like a bowling ball. He looks like he probably could play running back in a different era. And I do think that defense is something that probably should come to him relatively easy. You know, he's only a senior in high school right now, and he looks like a guy that could be playing Big East basketball tomorrow. You know, he's tough as hell. He played at Imhotep Prep in Philadelphia, and he comes from the same team final program that sent UConn Rasul Diggins and Corey Floyd, and neither of those guys worked out, and UConn is still getting players from that AAU program. I think you can read between the lines there and figure out what that means. So he's another guy that, like, when you're going to circle the first thing on the scouting report for him, it's like competitiveness, it's toughness, it's work ethic. The one thing I remember Adam Finkelstein saying this about him to me is that he's like a self-made offensive player, right? There's guys where you think of everybody probably is self-made, but he's a guy where you've seen in the last couple of years and become someone that's really efficient on that end. He shot 41% from 3 on the EYBL circuit. He had a 2.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio on the EYBL circuit. And I think that he is a player that can play both on the ball as a point guard and off the ball as someone that can kind of space the floor a little bit. And that's important because with Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer gone, I do think that the most likely scenario when he gets there, and maybe even his second season, is that he's going to be playing alongside solo ball. And, you know, if it doesn't end up being a one and done, Stephen Castle. And that's relevant because both of those players are bigger guards. They're both guys that are more effective with the ball in their hands, maybe, than having the ball not in their hands. And I think that Nowell is somebody that should fit really well alongside either of those guys because he could play the point if you need him to. You could play him off the ball as a second side creator, as someone that spaces the floor for Stephen Castle or Solo Ball, for example. But he's also someone that is unequivocally a point guard and a point of attack defender on the defensive side of the ball, which is not what you would consider Solo Ball and Stephen Castle. So the skill sets there both work really, really well. I don't think that Ahmad Nowell is a guy that we're going to be talking about as like a 2-and-done NBA player unless he turns into Kyle Lowry, which like I don't think is out of the question. But he is like, to me, like a 3-year college guy that is going to be a really, really, really good guard for the UConn Huskies. And frankly, like both of these guys, I really think really fit what UConn is targeting and fit the kind of player that they want in their culture and in their program, right? Like neither of these are going to be the most buzzy commitments. Cooper Flagg's a buzzy commitment. AJ Dybantsa is a buzzy commitment. Like Ahmad Nowell and Isaiah Abraham are really, really, really good players and really, really good commits, but they're not the kind of thing that is going to, it's not like Stephen Castle. It's not going to drive NBA scouts to find a way to get to stores 10 times a season. They'll be there, but it's not necessarily because Ahmad Nowell and Isaiah Abraham are going to be there, if that makes sense. But the reason they work is because these guys, like when you talk to people about them, the things that stand out are kind of the intangibles and the things that they can control, right? Their work ethic, their toughness, their versatility, the fact that they're from winning programs, the fact that they're winning basketball players. And one thing that I think that you can say about UConn's coaching staff is that they are as good, if not better, than anybody in college basketball when it comes to identifying the players that are going to work within the framework of what they want the program to be. Like in the last 3 years, how many guys have they really missed on? You know, they brought in like, 15 and maybe 10 of those guys have been hits, right? That's a pretty good percentage when you look across college basketball as a whole. So I think both of these guys are good commitments. I understand why the staff went after both of them very hard, and I understand why those are guys that they accepted commitments from and made priorities in this recruiting class. So I really like them both. I think that they're going to be there for a while. I think they are guys that we need to get to know and get used to, and I think they're going to be very, very good players. I'm excited about them. I think they're great gets. Right? Everyone loves to say great gets, but I think they're great gets and they're great fits. Our partner for today's episode is Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 during the college basketball season, and I loved the impact that it had on my energy levels. I'm a big coffee in the morning guy, but by the time that the afternoon would hit, I needed another boost. AG1 helped me tremendously, especially on those days when I didn't want to get up off the couch and go hit the gym. Their tagline is AG1 is comprehensive health and the power of habit in one. And man, that could not be more true. It's nearly impossible to eat and drink in a healthy manner in the month of February and the month of March when you are in my business. And AG1 was exactly the supplement that I needed to improve my gut health and cover my nutritional basis for the day. I've continued that into April. I've continued that into May, and I'm going to continue that the rest of the summer. All I have to do is mix a scoop of AG1 with some water or maybe add it into a smoothie, and I'm ready to go. Do it after lunch, and you'll be ready to go for the rest of the day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/field68. That's field 68 FIELD, the number 6, the number 8, and you can get yours now. So check it out and help support this show. Thanks. I mentioned buzzy commitments, Cooper Flagg and AJ Dybantsa. Both of those guys would be incredible players to land if you are the UConn basketball program. Cooper Flagg is the guy that's kind of taken over the mantle as the best prospect in high school basketball for a lot of very good reasons, not the least of which are these insane quadruple double stat lines that he's putting up playing 16U basketball on the UIBL circuit down at Peach Jam. And for my money, I actually think AJ Dybantsa is the best prospect in high school basketball. I think he is an absolute killer. I'll get into why in a little bit. Cooper Flagg is the one that I think you need to talk about a little bit more early on because it seems at this point in his recruitment, the guy that maybe has a little bit of a better chance to end up at UConn. Now, depending on who you ask, most people think that Duke is either the lean, the heavy favorite, or the team that is going to get them, and there's without question. I think as a consensus across the board in the recruiting industry, if you had to pick somewhere that Cooper Flagg ended up, I would be very surprised if there was anyone that didn't say I probably do, right? But I also don't think that this is something where Cooper Flagg has quite made the decision. It's just, part of it is connecting the dots. Part of it is that a superstar white basketball prospect, guys like that tend to end up playing at Duke. And part of it is that Cooper Flagg looks exactly like John Shire. Seriously, look at them. They could be brothers. I'm dead serious. Look at 2 pictures of them side by side. I've seen them in the same room, so I know that they are not the same person. But if I didn't see them in the same room, I wouldn't be 100% convinced that they are not the same person. What makes Flagg special as a player at this level is also something that concerns me a little bit when it comes to him moving up. And so I'm going to nitpick a little bit here. I want to be very clear about something, right? Like what Cooper Flagg did at Peach Jam this summer was the most impressive performance I've ever seen at Peach Jam. I've been going to Peach Jam for a decade. He is a fantastic basketball prospect that deserves all of the accolades that he gets. I would have him as the number 1 player in the 2025 class. If and when he decides to reclassify, which is something that if I were a betting man, I would probably wager on him to do. He is born on December 21st, which means that he was born 10 days before the cut line for the 2025 NBA draft. So if he reclassifies into the class of 2024, he will be eligible to be drafted in 2025, whereas someone like Cameron Boozer is 8 months younger. He will not be eligible to be drafted in 2025, which is why he's going to stay in the class of 2025 in all likelihood. So Flagg, the way that he plays, it was really interesting. So he played 16U this year. And the reason he played 16U this year is because his program, Maine United, is not it's not like Team Takeover where they have 15U, 16U, 17U, AB team, B team, all these other programs. Like it is his AAU team that is there because Cooper Flagg lives in Maine. And as good as his twin brother is, like there's that team is not really good enough to play at the 17U level, even if Cooper Flagg is. Like the reason they even made it to the finals is Cooper Flagg was averaging like 30 points, 20 boards, 10 blocks, and 8 assists. So he's got to do everything for him. And, it's what he is great at is on the defensive end. Like he's one of the most impactful rim protectors I've ever seen. And he is a guy that is 6'9". He's an incredible athlete. He has a knack for being able to throw the ball off the backboard to himself for a dunk. Like he's got these great second leap abilities. He really has incredible timing when it comes to blocking shots. And he draws a lot of comparisons to Andre Kirilenko on that end of the floor. But he's 6'9". Andre Kirilenko was like 6'11", almost 7 foot with shoulders that were out to here, right? And if Cooper Flagg does not add another inch or two in his growth, I wonder as he moves up levels, whether or not he will be able to have that same impact as a rim protector, whether or not he can be a 5 and play that role as a rim protector, because I don't think that he is someone as he continues to move up levels that is necessarily going to be able to be as effective as a primary ball handler and playmaker. Like the kind of like dribbling, like crossover between the legs, step back, hit a 3, like all the stuff that he does. Like, I'm not sure if that works as you continue to move up levels and continue to play against better competition and continue to play against, frankly, strong, tough as hell, athletic as hell, 6'5" guys that can climb up in you as a defender. And so I'm a little bit concerned there. That's not to say he can't do it. That's to say I kind of want to see it happen, and I need to see how he figures out how to adjust. Like, he is a fantastic prospect that I think will have a little bit more trouble adjusting as he moves up levels than someone like a Cameron Boozer, whose profile is that, like, we know him, like he's Paolo Banchero part 2, more or less, right? We know what he is, we know what he can be, we've seen it work, we've seen it at the NBA level. The one thing I would say is and I'm going to throw some insane names out here. Please, like, do not overreact to it. But like somebody like a Kevin Durant, somebody like a Zion Williamson, someone like a Victor Wembanyama, these players that we haven't seen their prototype before, and they're just fucking awesome. Sometimes those guys are just fucking awesome, and that's what it's going to be, and that's the way that they're going to play, and that's who they're always going to end up being. So he's an exciting prospect, and if he ends up at UConn, it would be unbelievable. I would say that right now, I would say like a better than 50% chance that it ends up being Duke, and if it's not Duke, there's a better than 50% chance that it's UConn. But I if that makes sense, like I think that UConn is still an underdog, but you know, I wouldn't count him out. I wouldn't count him out at this point because I do think that Cooper Flagg wants to get recruited. So he'll be really interesting. But Dybantsa is the guy, man. Dybantsa is the dude. He is a rising sophomore. He was class of 2026. He's actually he's basically the same age as Cameron Boozer, as the Boozer twins. So like he'll end up reclassifying. He'll be class of 2025 when things are all said and done, just because he's old enough. He's old enough to get drafted in the 2026 draft. So when that happens, like you reclassify, and he's good enough to be able to do it. Like he is 6'9", windmills with ease, between the leg dunks with ease. Terrific shooter, really understands how to get to his spots. Like he is everything you want out of a 3-level score. He is everything that you want out of a versatile switchable defender. Like he's just such a stud. And because he's so athletic and because he's such a weapon offensively, like I think that he has an incredibly high floor as a player. And the position that he plays is precisely the position that the NBA values more than anything else in the modern game. Like he is a versatile, big power wing in the mold of like a Paul George's kind of a guy, right? And I hesitate to throw out comparisons like that because I think, as we learned with the Emoni Bates saga, is it's so damaging to start locking in these guys as future superstars when they are this young. And I don't want to do it anymore. I don't like doing it. What I will say is that, like, if everything comes together for Dybantsa, I mean, he's got a chance to be unbelievable. He's got a chance to be so much fun. And he seems like a really like down to earth, normal kid. I don't think that he has necessarily been affected by the fact of his like just how good he could end up being. So it'll be really exciting to watch him develop. And he's another guy, like if he ends up at UConn, man, like that, we're gonna have fun. Dan Hurley's gonna have fun. Luke Murray's gonna have fun if he's still there. And come on, he's gonna like that whole staff is gonna have a great time scheming up ways for AJ Dybantsa to score, because there's a lot of ways that you're going to be able to do it. That dude is what we call special. Now his recruitment is a little bit more difficult to kind of peg because he's heading into his sophomore year and there's different rules for kids that are that young. But that's one where like I think G League Ignite is going to be kind of heavy in the mix. I wouldn't be surprised to see him be one of these guys that like his 2 years there. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But both of those two, they are so damn good. And in this moment in time, when UConn is back on the map as a national powerhouse, when they are the reigning national champions with a top 10 team coming back, when they sent 3 guys to the NBA in 2023, with another 2, maybe 3 in Klingon and Castle and potentially Alex Caravan that could end up being drafted in 2024. Like, this is a good time for Cooper Flagg to be sitting here being like, hey, you know what? UConn, they send guys to the league too. It's a good time to be showing AJ Dybantsa the All-American wall they got up in there. And speaking of the wall, like I touched on this a little bit in the audio I'm about to play with Fanta, but I think the most important player on UConn's team this year is going to end up being Samson Johnson, and I think that he is Like, once you get past the fact that, like, yes, Donovan Cling is going to be an All-American, and yes, you need a great point guard in Tristan Newton, and yes, like, adding Cam Spencer was just so important, and yes, Alex Karaban is everything you want out of a four-man in college basketball. What made UConn so good last season was that they were able to get 27 minutes of Adama Sanogo playing as hard as he possibly can, and then get 13 minutes of Donovan Clingan playing as hard as he possibly can, and you didn't have a drop-off. What you ran into the year before was that you needed to play Adama 38 minutes. And with big guys, like, once they hit that wall, they hit that wall. There's not really much else you're going to be able to get from them. Like, once they're gassed, they are gassed. And being able to have two guys that can rotate made sure they didn't run out of gas. Samson Johnson has all the potential in the world. If he can find a way to make it work this year and give UConn 10, 12, 14 minutes of really, really good minutes, maybe something to average. It's like, he didn't really need to average more than like 5 points, 5 boards, a couple blocks, but like, be impactful. Go get some offensive rebounds. Go commit some fouls. Go catch a couple dunks. Like, just fly around, be 6'10" and athletic as fuck. Like, if you can do that for 14 minutes a game, have an impact on the game, like, that's what they need out of Samson Johnson. So if he can do it this year, I think it's so important. And I will be fascinated to see if he actually pulls it off. Listen, this has been the episode of Top Dogs. We're going to roll in that audio now with me and Fanta. But yeah, it's been a fun summer to be a UConn fan. It's been a fun summer to listen to people try to argue with you on Twitter. It's been a fun summer to kind of follow along with the growth of this program. I think it's in a really good spot, whether or not that spot is the Big East or the Big 12. Hopefully we won't have to have an emergency podcast about that over the course of the next week or so. So without further ado, my man, John Fanta.
Welcome to another edition of the Field of 68's college basketball off-season grades. And we are talking about the defending national champion Connecticut Huskies. Who better to talk about that with than the host of the Top Dogs podcast than the man, Rob Doster? I'm John Fanta, and let's talk about the Huskies coming off their 5th national title, Rob. You have the high of winning a national championship, and all signs point to the UConn Huskies only accelerating into the 2023-24 season.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what this team's going to end up being. I think that, look, they lose a lot of important pieces. They lose the 3 guys that were the leaders for the program and the leaders in the locker room. They lose 3 guys that are, frankly, NBA basketball players. Andre Jackson was a 2nd-round pick. Jordan Hawkins was a lottery pick, and Adama Sanogo he's on a 2-way right now. He'll play his way into the league. Trust me on that one, Fanta. But I like what they got coming in. I like the pieces that they bring back. You know, I love Donovan Clingan, and I think Cam Spencer, we'll get to this in a little bit, is going to be an incredible addition for this team.
So you brought up a couple of those departures and an overarching look. Again, departed Andre Jackson Jr., Adama Sanogo, Jordan Hawkins. So you lose your 3 best players from last year's team. Joey Calcaterra, Naheem Aline, who now is in the St. John's uniform. Those are the major departures. The newcomers. Here's what's new. What's new is a top 5 recruiting class in the country. What's new is Stephen Castle's going to come into Connecticut and light the world on fire. By all accounts, he's ranked number 12 in the ESPN 100. You look at any recruiting service, they're going to have Castle very high up there. Solomon Ball, top 35 recruit, another guy that should help on the perimeter. Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, part of that loaded recruiting class. And then, of course, Cam Spencer came at a crucial time where UConn was trying to find somebody to help on the perimeter. They made the Rutgers transfer a priority. He had game winners at Purdue and at Northwestern last year, really helped Rutgers. What have you made of the roster management of what they've got here in this offseason and what they can be?
You know, I love the recruiting class coming in. I think they have a guy in Stephen Castle and like low-key a guy in Jalen Stewart that can come in and kind of impact right away. Do not be surprised if Stewart has a big freshman year, a la Alex Karaban last season. The staff likes him. He's lost some weight. He's lengthy. He's bouncy. He could shoot it. A really good, just kind of solid role piece. Solo ball is going to be good in a couple years. I would say if you put him on like a similar trajectory to James Bouknight and Jordan Hawkins in terms of come in, good as a freshman, really good as a sophomore, might be until his junior year. He's a long-term guy. And Stephen Castle is just a stud, like 6'7" athletic point guard, gets wherever he wants to go. But to me, Cam Spencer is the guy. And to be honest, John, if you remember all the way back in like April, the consternation among the good folks in the Nutmeg State when Nick Timberlake decided not to go to UConn and decided to go to Kansas instead, how concerned they were. Things work out for a reason, I guess, because Cam Spencer is a better basketball player than Nick Timberlake. All due respect to Timberlake. You're getting a guy that averaged 13 points, 3 assists, and 40-something% from three while playing in the Big Ten at Rutgers at a very slow pace. He's a good team defender. He's tough. He is competitive as hell. Like you said, he's made big shots. And he is, I think, a better all-around basketball player than people realize, even though I don't know if he can actually dunk. So I think he's coming in. He filled a role that they very specifically needed, a 3-and-D guy, a floor spacer. You put him on the floor with Tristan Newton. You put him out there with Donovan Clingan, who I think is going to shoot some threes this year, by the way, and Alex Caravan. All of a sudden, you got 4 shooters, you got floor spacers, you got length, you got athleticism, you got guys that can guard. I don't know how much more you could ask in terms of what this team brought in.
And most importantly, you got to have somebody that can be the engineer of all that, and they bring their point guard back. And Tristan Newton, over the last month and a half, 2 months of the season, was dynamite, Rob. I mean, when they took off in February, when Connecticut took off, remember Newton had a triple-double, 2 triple-doubles in the same season, by the way. The way that he was comfortable, he played with a chip on his shoulder. Because remember, we got to January, and all of you listening and watching, myself included, I think everybody said, ugh. They brought in this kid from East Carolina, and frankly, it's been a mixed bag. He took that personally. You could feel in the NCAA tournament, Rob, how personally Newton felt that he had to own it, that he had to be that guy that was leading the way at point guard. Look at what he did in the national championship game. Look at what he did in their NCAA tournament run. He was absolutely elite. And I feel like it just took him a little bit of time to fully become that Connecticut point guard. There's going to be no needing some time here heading into this season. Having him back, his return, I know it was expected, but that you can't overstate what it means, like a Kansas having DeJuan Harris back, as much as he means to that team. I don't think you could say enough good things about Tristan Newton, because it's a guy, he's going to play 30-plus minutes a game, and he's going to run your point guard position, and you're never going to have to worry about your point guard spot.
Yeah, and by the end of last season, what UConn was doing was when things would get down to the end of a clock or they had a little bit of game pressure on them, they stopped running their stuff, and they just kind of said, all right, give the ball to Tristan and get out of the way. They did that for like the last 6 minutes down the stretch of the San Diego State National Championship game win, and it went from being a game where San Diego State was putting a little bit of game pressure. I think they cut it to 5, and then UConn just pulled away down the stretch. So his development into the go-to guy was huge. I think that the addition of Stephen Castle should take some pressure off of him. Because, I mean, look, Stephen Castle is really good at getting into the lane and creating and firing passes around. And he's got the size to see over people, but he's not really a scorer. And Tristan Newton, for all the good that he does as a lead guard, he's more wired to kind of get a bucket, whether it's a step back 3, step behind a screen, get into the lane to shoot one of those floaters. Like, once he kind of figured out how to use his strength and his size to his advantage in the Big East, like, he became a very, very good player. It was a confidence thing. Like, he was so good down the stretch.
So I'll give you my take. First off, I agree with you totally. And Dan Hurley, by the way, that I keep remembering this statement. I said to him that I'm the national championship game in the hallway back in November. You said you felt your team had a shot to be special. What made you believe then that then became reality to win a national title? And he literally said, he goes, I knew Sanogo, I knew Hawkins, I knew Jackson. It really came down to the Tristan piece. And he goes, Newton fully coming into the fray and performing to the level that he performed, that's what did it for me. I'm going to give you this take, and I want to get your thoughts because we turn to expectations now. I think what this team ends up doing gets defined by just how great. I think he's going to be great. But is he most dominant post presence in the land or second or third. Like how great Klingon is for me can then speed UConn to maybe going back-to-back Final Fours. I don't think that's out of the equation. I think that's the unknown. Like we all know he's going to be great. We all know he's poised for that big leap. But is it National Player of the Year? Ask Rob. Is that on the table?
So here's my take.
Is that unfair?
Yeah. For Klingon, I probably yes, because I think like Zach Edey is awesome and Hunter Dickinson is my preseason National Player of the Year. I just, as much as I love Klingon, I don't think he can get to that level. But I don't think like calling him first or second team All-American is something that is out of the question. What I'll say is this. So I'll get to the expectations in a second. I would say that the X factor for this team this season is going to be Samson Johnson. And the reason that I say that is if you watch Samson play, he is, look, Hurley said it for 2 years now, 2 years in off seasons, that Samson Johnson has wall potential. And what that means is he can be on like the Hall of Fame, All-American, like the wall of like Ray Allen, Kemba Walker, Adama Sanogo, Jordan Hawkins, guys like that level. He has the talent to be that guy. And what made UConn so dangerous last year was that you could play Adama Sanogo for 27 minutes and Donovan Klingon for 13 minutes. No one got tired. You didn't have a drop off at the 5 spot. And no one had to worry about fouls. No one had to worry about anything. You just go out there, you play your balls off for the time that you're on the floor, and you can, and it works. And if Samson Johnson can be that guy that can give you 12 minutes a game of running around, blocking shots, getting some rebounds, catching some lobs, switching if you have to, just being a guy where there is obviously there's going to be a drop off from Klingon, but if there's not that much of a drop off where it's not you're playing him because you have to, as opposed to like he's earning those minutes and he's fighting for minutes, if that makes sense. If Samson Johnson can be that guy, then I think UConn has a chance to repeat. My expectation for him would be like, look, you got to be in the top 2 or 3 in the Big East, right? The way that whoever wins that league, UConn, Marquette, maybe Creighton, is going to come down to like who has the best luck with health, who doesn't have a guy go down for the sprained ankle for a month. You got to be in the mix there, make a run, get to the final, the title game of a Big East tournament, and make a run of the tournament. Get to the second weekend, maybe you got a chance at a Final Four. They are that good. They are top 5 team in America to me with Cam Spencer. And that's what you got to be in the mix. You got to be in the national conversation, top 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 throughout the entire season. That'll put you in the mix to win a Big East title. That'll put you right there to win a Big East tournament. And if you're that good, you got a chance to repeat. And that's what my expectation would be. Win one thing. Let's win one thing, Fanta. How about that?
I'm with you. I mean, it's hard to, but like, you also have to normalize expectations. And I understand every Connecticut fan expects to win a national championship at the start of every year. That's why we love you, UConn fans. It's why you're the best. And honestly, it's not an unfair expectation. I mean, they've got a good enough team to do it. I think we're all high on Klingon. That's why I asked you the question, and I'm with you. For the record. I'm asking the question to create some buzz. I think that Edey and Dickinson would be more positioned. But like the way that Klingon could evolve, the player he can turn into, there's so much to like about Donovan. He is the perfect UConn player. He takes great pride in playing for the program. The guy's work ethic is through the roof. He could play above the rim endlessly. You have a point guard. You've got getting Spencer's huge for shooting. So my expectations are absolutely they could go back to a Final Four. I always say this, it's once you get to the Final Four, like anything can happen. Once you get to the NCAA tournament, anything can happen. So I don't think that like once you get to the Final Four, when people are like, oh, they could get to a Final Four, but I don't think they could win it all. Shut up. They got to the Final Four. If they won 4 games, they can win 2 more. Like, don't say my expectation is Final Four, but they can't win it all. No, if you can make the Final Four, of course you could repeat. So that's why the expectations are what they are. Let's turn to off-season grades. What grade do you hand out, Professor Doster, for the UConn Huskies?
I'm going to give them an A-. I don't think that you really could have expected Jordan Hawkins or Andre Jackson to come back. I think that getting Adama Sanogo back would have been a home run. I don't think that it was ever realistic that you were going to have both Adama and Donovan Clingan on the same roster for a second season in a row, given how good Clingan has a chance to end up being. So you get Clingan back at the 5, you get Tristan Newton back, and then you go out and you add the best piece that you could have added at the 2-guard spot that they wanted to. I'll give it an A-. I can understand that some people would be lower because Sanogo was a 2-way and could have come back. But I don't think that you were going to get both of those guys back on the same roster for a second straight season. So I will give them an A-. And maybe that's just a homer grade, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I'm at you. I'm with you. I don't understand why you would give them anything below a B+, but I'm going to give them an A- as well. And I'll give them an A- because they have their point guard back. They recruited a great class. Like, look, if you're going to recruit a top 5 to 10 recruiting class, you're not going to load up in the portal when you have that caliber of a group coming in.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so many minutes on the floor. You have to go about this with balance. I think they did. Rob, I think before Cam Spencer, I probably would have said B+. When they get him, and they get a guy who's averaged over 13 points per game in the Big Ten, understands clutch shot making, understands, like, we always say with transfers, who are you coached by? Steve Pikiell coaches toughness. He coaches IQ. He's really good. I mean, he's a UConn guy too. I love this. I think this was a great pickup. I give Connecticut an A- as well in the offseason. Any final thoughts?
It's going to be a great year to be in Storrs, Connecticut. Once again,
it's going to be fun. That schedule too is loaded. A couple of Garden appearances. You get Gonzaga on the books. It's UConn's schedule is going to be a monster, and it's going to be a blast to watch. A trip to Allen Fieldhouse at Kansas. Expectations high. The people in the basketball capital of the world wouldn't have it any other way. That does it. UConn, their off-season grade, an A- here as we roll on the Field of 68.